Hello and welcome to Traditional Painting the Digital Way. This is where I use digital painting apps to teach traditional painting techniques. In this video we're going to be working on part 3 of my Haunted Pumpkin series. And this is for our Inktober October drawing. And we want to go ahead in this part and just finish up the drawing and then start on the color. And so what I want to do is use the watercolor brushes in Infinite Painter, and they give a pretty good little wash look, so I really like that. And you can also follow along traditionally. I would use maybe a pan watercolor or a tubed watercolor for this, and not really a watercolor pencil, because you want to wash. So we're putting sort of a blue wash in the background here, and probably a ultramarine blue type. Maybe throw in a little bit of purple or something. You just kind of want a really light blue wash. I don't want a dark black color, because although it's nighttime, the moonlight will be shining, and this is watercolor, and we want kind of a lighter look. So I'm using a little bit of probably a burnt umber color for the ground, and again you want to use a wash and a light wash brush. And then you want to go ahead and use some of these other brushes in Infinite Painter that will give a kind of a leaf-like look here. And so I'm using that just to kind of make the look of the hay and whatever it is, cornfield or hay, and grass behind the pumpkins, because we definitely want a little bit of the vegetation. I assume it may be a bit of a pumpkin patch too, so you want to go ahead and use kind of a greenish brown for that, but make just a little light wash. We're using really light colors right now, and so I want kind of a light orange wash on the pumpkins. And you would just go ahead and make it. You can go ahead and paint over your features of your pumpkin if you're following along traditionally, but leave spaces for the lighter colors. So you would use kind of a lighter orange for where you want your highlights, and then a darker orange for where you would want some more of your shadow on your pumpkins. And again, this is kind of totally backwards from acrylic. Acrylic, you work from dark to light. With watercolor, it's totally the opposite. You work from light to dark. And so that's what I'm doing here. And then I'm going ahead and just kind of going over the orange colors, and you can make them. You can always add the dark there, but you can't really go back in watercolor. Now, of course, you can with digital. I mean, with digital, you can work the same way you do in acrylics, but if you're following traditionally, you would definitely work from light to dark. And here I'm just kind of erasing out some of the blue that's on the ghost that's lifting the pumpkin up, or that's haunting the pumpkin. And you can add some white watercolor, or you can use gouache. If you add some gouache there, then gouache will go over bottom colors. So you can add some light if you add gouache to your watercolor, and a lot of people will do that too. So I thought I'd give it kind of a yellowish, off-white body for the ghost pumpkin. And I'm just kind of going back and forth with it a little bit in Infinite Painter, trying to figure out if I want an off-white or a little bit more yellowish. I don't want pure white. I want kind of an off-white there, just to show that it's a kind of a spirit or a ghost. And one thing you can do in watercolor before your colors dry is take a paper towel and lift out paint, and that will bring back some of your highlights. And then I want to go ahead and use some of these leafy brushes in Infinite Painter to make the vegetation behind the pumpkins. And you kind of want to make the color a greenish look, or an off-white, not an off-white, a sort of a greenish tinged orange color perhaps, or greenish tinged yellow ochre. You just kind of want to get it a little bit of a different color than the pumpkins. And then you want to put a little bit of some shadow color around the pumpkins and to around in the vegetation, and a little bit more to the left side of the painting, because we kind of want to make it look darker but leave the moon side of the painting a little bit brighter. So I'm throwing in a little bit of purple there, and you can go over your traditional paintings with a flat wash brush, and you can always add darker things there. And so here I just wanted some thin wisps of perhaps some dark clouds there, and you can use just a little bit of a darker blue, or just go back over it and add a little bit of a thicker blue there. And then I wanted to put some shadows under the pumpkins and behind them on the vegetation, and that just settles them down and makes them look like they're on the ground while the other pumpkin is floating and is being lifted up or haunted by a ghost. And so then I just want to go ahead and add blues and purples to those shadows under the pumpkin. And then you want to go ahead and get a bright yellow color for the moon. Go ahead and color in the moon, and just kind of make sure that he's a yellowish color. And then I wanted to go ahead and start with the inking. Once you've got all the underpainting of the watercolor, you can go ahead and start inking. And inking is where I start to bring in the detail. Now you can bring in detail with watercolor, and you can use the watercolor for everything to bring in detail if you want to. But I like to just kind of do a little wash of colors and then go ahead and do the final details with my pen and ink. And so I'm sort of using a brown color to start the details on this pumpkin, and you could probably use a brown ink of some sort, maybe a burnt umber. It depends on what kind of ink you're using. They have acrylic inks, they've got India ink, there's all different kinds of colors, or you can use your Copic markers, or you can use any kind of liner. There's all kinds and tons. There's gel pens. You can use gel pens if you wanted to use that for your detail work on the ink. And so if you're worried about archival type of ink, then you might go with some of the India inks, because they're permanent and they don't fade as much. Or anyway, you just kind of have to check and see which inks will have the archivalness to them. And so here I'm just kind of working on the pumpkin, adding a little bit of, you can use white acrylic ink or gel pen for this to bring a little bit of white on the teeth of the pumpkin. If you're following along traditionally, I like the manga inker in Infinite Painter. That's one of my favorite brushes that I use when I use the pen category. And infinite painter, and so I'm just kind of working on adding a little bit of some details to the bottom of the pumpkin shading, trying to get a little bit of a crosshatch look on the bottom there. We just want a little bit of some shade on the pumpkin to give it the look that it's not floating, that it's on the ground. And so I'm working on adding a little bit darker ink and ink lines to the right side of the pumpkin, and we're just kind of just line up your shadows with where your moon is. And so this is the end of part 3 of my haunted pumpkins. And in part 4, we're going to go ahead and finish out the inking and do the final details. So hit the subscribe button if you want to see that. And thanks to everybody for watching. Thank you so much for your support. If you have any questions, just leave them in the comments down below, and I will catch you later.